So the purpose of the next 15 minutes or so is really to go through some of the key day-to-day kind of core work that Abacus does for its existing members. For some of you, I know this is going to be back to basics, so bear with me, but there might even be something that's interesting and new that you guys weren't aware of. I know there are people in the room that are new to their businesses or potentially new to Abacus, so hopefully this will be really valuable. So in terms of what we'll focus on, I've got a case study for you from Bright Minds about how they use our data to find new customers, and a few other success stories around that too. A case study from the Kashmir Centre about re-engaging with lapsed customers, and one or two other success stories to mention as well. So it's a bit of sort of bragging rights time, but hopefully give you some actual real-life examples of the work that we do and the value that will be available to your businesses as well. So to start off with finding new customers, so as I mentioned, Bright Minds is the case study here, and they're a home shopping business, really well established, award-winning, that have been selling educational products and toys to families with school-aged children for a number of years. And they've been Abacus Alliance members since 2008, so taking our prospecting data to grow their customer database. But the challenge they had is after years of working with us, they actually wanted to really scale up what they do. They wanted to take advantage of their Christmas period. So as you can imagine, it's Christmas present time, it's a key season for them, and a really good opportunity for them to maximise their already successful acquisition campaigns. But they needed to be confident, A, as a small business, that they didn't want to invest too much in something that they weren't going to be fully confident was going to work for them. But they also needed to know that their break-even, which is kind of where they need all of their prospecting campaigns to be, wouldn't be compromised by going to greater volumes. And that's a key thing because for Bright Minds, lifetime value is a little bit lower than it would be for some others because obviously kids tend to grow up and there's a certain window within which you can sell to that family unless you can encourage them to have another baby. I don't think there's a way of doing that yet. So we also looked at an optimization of their lapsed customer pot and optimizing an acquired data set, which worked well for them, but I'm going to talk about those first 2 points in particular through this case study. So the solution that was agreed upon for them was the Abacus One solution. And I'll explain a bit about how this works as we go through, but essentially this is a modeling solution, not a new model. So what it does is it uses existing models in a slightly different way, so tried and tested models, to find much greater volume, but still maintaining the performance that the client needs. So in order to basically build the solution, we started off by doing some results analysis of previous campaigns. So looking back at what's worked for Bright Minds in the past and identifying the best models at selecting names from the Abacus Alliance universe. And then we incorporated them into an Abacus One solution, and we tested that solution against Bright Minds' existing control models. And I'll just take a couple of minutes to go through this. So again, apologies to everybody who knows how the Abacus One works and how round strategy works. I know there's a lot of people here that do, but for those that don't, this might be quite interesting insight into how the detail works. And I know Gemma's watching me, and I hope I get it right. So the traditional round strategy is essentially where a set of models are chosen to select from the universe, but they select in priority of one another. So you'll see here the affinity is in round one, and that has the first dibs on the full Abacus Alliance universe. Then the synergy model, which selects names in a slightly different way, picks up the best that are still left over. And then the optimal model, which is, again, another type of algorithm, mops up the best of the rest. So this is a really good solution at finding responsive names at low volumes, and I know a lot of people in the room will probably still use the strategy, so I'm not here to say stop doing that. But what the Abacus One solution does is solve a particular problem where the round strategy, because it's using just one model to select a name, if that name comes low down in the model or doesn't appear in the model at all, there's a chance that it won't be selected at all for the mailing campaign, but it might still have been a responsive name. So the Abacus One strategy takes exactly the same models that we know work well and we knew worked well for Bright Minds, but we let them have equal opportunity to select names from the universe, and so names were validated across all of those models rather than each model having a chance to go at the universe ahead of the other ones. So you'll see here that certain names are validated against 3 of the models, others against just 2 of the models, and the remainder against just 1 model. So those that are validated against 1 model are still good prospects, but those that are validated against 2 or 3 are even stronger prospects. And that's a really key thing, because it means that if a name might have been missed out in round strategy by 1 model having a go at it, this solution allows names to be mopped up where they might otherwise have been missed. And that's a really key thing to be able to find increased volume from the Abacus Alliance. So hopefully that all makes sense. But there's 3 depths depending on mailing plan. So what that then means in terms of the rollout. So if you think of a traditional round strategy, the models are built with typically 50,000 segment sizes. So essentially, if you test a segment of one of those models, you're testing for rollout of 50,000. The way the Abacus One works is it allows you to test for rollout of much greater volume. So the orange bar on the right-hand side there is the current control volume. These aren't specific figures to bright minds, but give you a rough idea. So they were, let's say they're mailing 200,000. The expected growth depth is the red bar in the middle. So testing a sample of that would be representative of a further 100K on top, so actually 300,000 total volume. And then we also encourage our clients to test for future depth, because you don't want to limit yourself. You want to know what's available, if it all works, and what you could roll out to in the best case scenario. So we always suggest the test of the blue depth as well, and if that works, you know that you've got something representative of 450,000. So it's over double what they're originally mailing. So in terms of the results, it's pretty simple. They were able to have that confidence that we talked about at the start from testing a small sample to know they could continue at break even across those much bigger volumes. They grew circulation last year by 70% compared to their 2013 Christmas mailing, and they're aiming at doing exactly the same again for this year. So the solution works. So Gemma will be talking a little bit later on specifically about the models and the Abacus One solution. But if you are interested in this and it's not something you're already using, then please do speak with her or speak with your account manager throughout the course of today. Just 1 or 2 other stories then on the customer recruitment front. I'll go through these very quickly and I won't read out each testimonial, I'm sure you're pleased to hear. But Kaleidoscope have been with us for years, real mail order heartland brand, and they use the Abacus One solution in a similar way to scale up their volumes. Eternal Collection, who I believe are here with us today, although I haven't met you, Pauline, but I'll try and have a word with you later on. I checked with Kelly that it was okay to talk about this, by the way. So this is a testimonial from Pauline, and I think the key thing that jumps out here is the fact that they were able to use our data in a way that allowed them to accurately forecast the results that they were expecting, and deliver on those results as well. Dena Kashmir, interesting thing that they pointed out, if you look at the very end there, they talk about very strong lifetime value. And that is a huge selling point of using Abacus targeting, because you are using multi-buyer behaviors to predict a response. So it isn't just, is somebody going to buy from us once, it's, is somebody going to keep buying from us once we've recruited them. So this is a really common story across lots of our clients, but really nice that Lena at Dena was happy to share that. And Bradford Exchange, big mailer, multiple campaigns a year, but a little bit different to your traditional home shopping brand in that they sell collectibles on more of a sort of direct-to-consumer D2C basis. And just to kind of give you guys a flavour, the models work for more than just your traditional mail order businesses. And I know there's lots of people here from pure plays, people here with really strong retail bricks and mortar focus. So just to give you some confidence that actually these models work across lots of different types of brands that are trying to drive traffic to lots of different types of sales channel. So that's the customer acquisition bit. So the second case study we've got is focusing on re-engaging lapsed customers. So there's kind of 2 sides to the Abacus coin. The first is using our data to find new prospects, and the other is to actually use it to enhance your own database. And this is the type of thing that Mark was talking about earlier on, and Luke, you mentioned in your presentation as well. So the Kashmir Centre is the case study we have here. And they're a brand that have been working with us for about 15 years. And when they first joined us, they had about 50,000 customers. So growth was the focus for them, and they used our prospect data to try and sell more of their high-end cashmere clothing and accessories. But because of the success of that, having grown their database 4 or 5 times over, they then realized, wow, we've got our own substantial data asset that we now need to manage as well. So in 2009, we started working with them to support their own customer mailings as well as their prospect mailings. So the challenge was specifically reactivating lapsed customers, but also enquirers who had requested a catalogue over a year ago but hadn't yet made a purchase. So they had 45,000 people who they classed as lapsed. That was people that hadn't bought for 2 years, and 38,000 enquirers who last requested a catalogue over a year ago. They wanted to tap into these pots, which they really couldn't optimise themselves, and also provide customer analysis without adding to the additional costs at their end. So the solution was Campaign 360, and Mark has already talked about some of the different ways in which you can achieve the goals that Cashmere Centre were after here. But the Campaign 360, for those of you that don't know, is a fully managed service where essentially we combine all the transactions made by the Cashmere Centre's customers with them, with their spend activity across all the 508 brands on the Alliance, and then use that depth of spend insight and behavioural insight to build a really powerful segmentation that can then be used across every single mailing across the year. So we built this solution by starting with some preliminary analysis. So what we did was look at responders from Cashmere Centre's own mailings previously to see what the spend characteristics were of the responders to those campaigns across the Abacus Alliance. So that allowed us to build up a set of variables, really, that were predictive of what would indicate the likelihood of a purchase from within the Cashmere Centre's own database. We then incorporated those variables into the segmentation, the bespoke segmentation, and we tested that across multiple campaigns because it's important to identify the most lapsed reactivation opportunities and the most enquirer activation opportunities while still maximising the contribution from the campaign. So the results are fantastic, and I don't need to necessarily run through them too much, but increasing reactivated customers by 40%, profitably converting 758 enquirers who previously they'd had no joy in segmenting, and growing their growing their annual revenue by 52% in 4 years. So the key thing to say there is that they did all of that without increasing their marketing spend. So I think it's a really important thing that by being more efficient and more targeted in how they spoke to their customers and who they spoke to, they were able to achieve some really key wins. Another key thing to mention here is that the time investment was not something Cashmere Centre could really afford. They didn't have a team of analysts. Their senior management certainly couldn't afford the time to be doing all of this segmentation. So the fact that there was a solution available to them that meant that actually we can use Abacus as an extension of our marketing team while still having full visibility of everything that's going on was really, really important to them, and I know has been a huge help for Dale and the guys there. And this is now something they use across their annual campaigns, of which they do 12, I'm told, sometimes even more than that. So there's a few words that Dale has said there, and I'll leave you to digest those in your own time. But as I mentioned, there are different ways in which these types of results can be achieved, and it's kind of dependent on how you're set up as a business. So it depends on whether you have the ability in-house or the time in-house to segment data yourselves and use external variables to support that on top of your own RFM. Or whether actually you have analysts but you'd rather their time be spent elsewhere, or you don't have those people, and it would be much easier for you to have the names ready to mail on a campaign-by-campaign basis, so essentially outsource it to Abacus. So do have a chat with me, or I know Michele is here somewhere, he's doing a roundtable later, but he does a lot of work on this, and the Campaign 360 is his product. Mark Waring as well, who was speaking earlier on. Do have a chat with us during the course of today, or your account manager, if you want to know how you could use this insight to enhance how you're speaking to your own customers. So that's more or less it. There's one or two other success stories that I wanted to quickly mention. So Madeline, I know those guys are here today. Until I think it's great to hear that for you guys, the value of the Abacus Alliance goes beyond more than just the data that we provide for your campaigns. It's days like today, it's the annual trends report, it's networking events, it's campaign recommendations, industry insight, all of which is free of charge. So just wanted to get that plug in there. And I think this is the last one. Yep. So Outdoor & Country, just to mention, these are a high-end men's and women's fashion brand, and they started working with us about a year ago now, having never used Abacus before, had no idea how a co-op worked. But the reason I wanted to mention this, Jonathan was kind enough to say that it was very easy for them to get started, and it really is. I think there are some steps we need to take to get people involved in the Alliance, and I'm speaking specifically to people who are completely new and not joined up yet, but it is very easy to get involved. It is very easy to start to use the data in your campaign. So do come and speak to myself or Obi or Doug throughout the course of the day. I'm sure we'll find you anyway. But we'll be able to give you an idea of how you can get started. So I'm being waved at to stop. I will preface the any questions bit by the fact that I may not be the best person to answer them. If there are any, please do ask, and I'll try. Otherwise, I can always try and refer you to the best person afterwards.